You create something amazing. Dream with us, plan with us, grow with us, build with us. Come build with us at Hosford's Building and Nevis Centres today. Build with us at Hosford's.
More than 42 million cars from 19 different car companies are being recalled for faulty airbag inflators. Repairs are fast, easy, and free. The problem isn't with the airbag, it's with the airbag inflator. Because the inflator can rupture, shooting shrapnel through the airbag, which can cause serious injury or even death. Don't risk it, fix it.
Please contact TDC Automotive Division to find out if your Toyota vehicle is affected by the Takata airbag recall. Visit or call us at 465-2511 in St. Kitts or 469-5430 in Nevis.
And a pleasant good day to you and yours, and welcome to another presentation of Voices for today. The time is 10:09, and I'm going to continue in a vein that I have been in relation to the recent spate of crime that's been happening, and we tend to wait until things happen to address it for a short period, and then quickly after, we forget. My intent is to not only highlight that this is happening, but to try to look at the root causes of why it is happening. And one of the main causes I've always stipulated on various different programs at different times, that it has to do with self-pride, self-hate. When one does not see and accept who they are, who the Creator made them to be, it is not far for one to realize that those individuals, such individuals, will not respect themselves or anyone else. When one respects themselves as a human being, they naturally extend that respect outward to others as, I respect myself, so I respect you. It's a given, okay? But if I don't respect myself, then it means that I will not respect you. And if I respect myself, it means that I will treat you in a way that I would want you to treat me, vice versa, right? If you respect yourself, then you respect others, and you expect that it will be a reciprocal thing. But for 400 years now, for 400 years, we as a black people have been forced through beatings, through hangings, through all kind of things, to not accept who we are. And this has gone so far that if you look back into the history of places like India and China and Japan, go back into their history and you'll realize that their roots was black. So if it is that their roots was black, undeniably, undisputably black, but you look at them today and you don't see that, ask yourself why. Look at Puerto Rico, Latin America. And if you look at all of those countries, you realize originally there were endless blacks. Now when you go to places like Argentina, Venezuela, so on and so forth, it's almost like, where are the blacks? But they exist. But when you speak to these black individuals in these places, they tell you that their color is pushed to the back, pushed in the background. So let's come back again to China and Japan and India. Those three I'm going to use mainly to show you how colorization and the shamedness of being black cause a people to try to whiten themselves by integration, by never saying that I am black or I am black and I am proud. And this is an undeniable fact. Go into these places and look into their culture. Dig into the Latin American culture, and you will realize that they despise darkness. And what really annoys me is that Africa, of all places now, Africa, mind you, the foundation of humanity, where blackness was and is still evidently predominant, but you see a gradual despising of self, a despising of who you are. And I drew that in terms of the women and the fact that as soon as the women, and I'm speaking mainly in Africa, even though it happens all across the black diaspora, I specifically single out Africa because if Africa were to lose its pride in blackness and Africa were to become like India, China, Japan, then all of this distorted, lying history that they have imposed upon us, it will be, in a sense, validated because no one will want to identify with the origin. No one would want to identify with being black. So bring it home now to St. Kitts Nevis and what has been presently happening. And you say, like I sometimes say to myself, well, you know, every individual is responsible for their action. 400 years is a long time. Why have we not evolved? Why are we not changing? Why is it that we can't see what seems to be evident? Well, it seems to be evident, and something seeming to be evident, and it being evident, and it being accepted as being evident and important, that is a whole big difference. Hello, caller.
Grand Rising Quint.
Good day to you, Journey.
Yeah, how are you, man?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm doing good. You know, Quint, it's not so much about the resources of the African continent, you know. I mean, when one has to pause and look at what has happened, I mean, if you go back to the Europeans when they came into Africa, you know, there was like I think it was like three phases. Three phases. We had the explorers, we had the mercenaries, we had the missionaries, and we have the economic system. It was well orchestrated, Quint. I mean, I'm sure you know about the Cecil Rhodes and others who were eager, wanting to know of the minerals and the resources. And our people innocently escorted them. I mean, men like Cecil Rhodes who were like, oh, tell me about these stones and the diamonds. We are the mines. And when you have to look at how our ancestors innocently escorted them and showed them where these mines were, not knowing what was the I can't find the words to describe these people. And then they turn and say that we don't know the value of the gold, the diamonds. And then
How could we?
they
How
have
could we?
turned all of everything into economics.
How could we not know the value of the gold and diamonds when Egypt is there as an example of the fact that we knew more about the gold and the diamonds than them? Because when they discovered the tomb of King Tut, up to now they're still baffled at the intricacy of the diamond and gold jewelry carving and sculpting and that kind of stuff. So how is it that?
Well, you know, Quint, what I mean is this, right?
No,
Well, we
you're
look at
right. You're right. You know what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, how is it that they were pushing that when evidence was there to show that it was not so?
right. But you know, no, you see, we have to look at what they did after they learned of the resources that is in the continent. I mean, the history shows that how they destroyed the kingdoms and the queendoms in Benin. They burned our library, our university, and they defaced some of the structure that was there, the Sphinx. But then you think now, why I say that the accusation that we don't know the value. We knew that the resources, the minerals that was in the earth is there for a purpose. Now they have turned the minerals into economics, Queen. Our kingdom and queendoms on the continent had gold. They had utensils that were made from the minerals. But I mean, is it fair to say in that time and space they weren't thinking of economics? Is it fair for us to say this? Because what they now turn into economics, our people was there and they were with the people. But when you fast forward to today now, Quint, you know, to go back to men like Cecil Rhodes and all of those, these greedy Quint, for the sake of the station, you know, I'm gonna choose my words carefully. But they have turned this thing into economics, Quint. And then when we now who are taken and find ourselves in this geographic space, the Caribbean, the Americas, and you know, into Europe, we cut off ourselves. We are cut off. And then here we are. in their system where they are feeding off our energy. I mean, Quint, it's not just economics, it is politics, it is religion,
But
and
Journey,
it is Christianity.
but
Yeah.
Journey, I am also saying, even though I agree with everything that you say, I always emphasize the question is, why is it that we're not aware after all this time of what has been done, and why is it that we continually buy into what is being done to our detriment?
Well, Quint, sometime Mr. McMahon always say, I'm trying to remember his words, something about might is right. We have to also be aware, Quint, that they rule by the gun. My question is, where would they be without their guns? I mean, Quint, this is not no small
But
thing
ever
here.
since colonialism started, they had the guns. During the Black Power movement, they had the guns. During slavery, they had the guns. But yet still, our people, black people, were putting up more of a fight than they are now. That is my point.
And you see, now, and to that point you just made, Quint, there are those of us who say our ancestors gave up, or our ancestors sold us. But look at the way they orchestrated their encounter, or the way they came into the continent. It was strategized. They send the missionaries and they tell us, oh, lay your treasures up in heaven where rust and thieves cannot enter. And don't turn the other cheek. Quint, are you imagine beginning to understand the depths of the psychological trauma that they have imposed on us?
But Journey, I am saying
Turn the other cheek.
I am
Yeah, that's a second, Quint. And don't pray for those who despitefully, those that prosecute you, and love your enemy and do good to those that. Oh my, Quint.
I am saying, Journey, we should be way past that. I am saying
We are not way past it, Quint. Clearly, we are we are not past it.
But listen the word
Because
that
there are those who would defend it.
But listen the words that I said. I said we should be past it, because what we need to do is all that you have outlined, which is true. All we need to do is look at their examples and use it for our betterment. Because you say, don't turn the other cheek, right? They say in the Bible, which is true, turn the other cheek. But they don't turn the other cheek. So what I'm saying, use them as our examples. They say turn the other cheek for us, but they don't turn the other cheek. So we should not be turning the other. So we should not be turning the other cheek. That is what I'm saying. Follow their examples.
Here's where we are, Quint, because you see, I said just a couple of days ago that we are becoming them, and we lack allowing them becoming us. We are becoming them, and we lack the opportunity of them becoming us. Look at how they come and they look at us, Quint, when we celebrate Carnival, our masquerade, our clown, our dancing, our drums, everything that is us. But yet, we amuse them, but they're not becoming us. We are more becoming them.
You noted before you called me that I spoke about Latin America and those Latin American countries, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, so many of them. Even though when you go to these countries now, you see predominantly high-colored people as close to white as they can get. Look at their culture, which is to strengthen the point that you're just making. No matter what they do, they try to phase us out in terms of color, but in terms of culture, they keep that, because all of the Latin American culture is steeped in African culture, cuisine, African cuisine. So this is why I'm saying we need to stop letting them dictate how we react, as in terms of how they want us to react, and react the way they react. You understand?
Yeah. I saw something the other day, last year, Quint, on Facebook. A group of Americans. This was it seemed like it was in America. This happened where a group of women hosting some young school children at a hotel. It was an event where they were teaching them how to eat with knife and fork. And Quint, you know, for the life of me, in this day and age, and you hear one of the ladies telling the children them, oh, that's the European way of how to hold, how to cut a piece of vegetable, cut a piece of steak, and how to place it, how to place once you hold the fork in your left hand and when to put the knife down on your right. And she's saying, this is the European way and this is the American way. And in my mind, what about these are black people, Quint, at a hotel event, and she's telling the kids the European and the American way of eating with utensils.
Well, really and truly, this is why I don't follow everything that people might put forward, because there's a time and a place for everything. And we all learn that, what they call etiquette, right? And I don't expect that you're going to go into a hotel environment and use your hands and that kind of stuff. So I can understand that. But all of us who learned that when we are among ourselves and in our homes, we don't follow those practices.
But why, Quint? Why? Okay, now to the point you just made, at a hotel, going to a hotel, you see, we are being ourselves. What is wrong with us being ourselves?
Well, you see, again, I say there's a time and a place for everything. And even though, like I said, I hear what you're saying, but if I go into a hotel environment, which is very rarely, you understand, because I don't really go into places where I'm not comfortable, and I'm not really comfortable in hotel environments because I can cook. I don't see anything that they can offer me in a hotel that I can't prepare myself, and I mean anything. So why should I go into an environment to do what? To sit down and feel uncomfortable? But if it is that there is an event and I go, I'm not going to use my hands and so forth. I'm not going to do it, not because I'm ashamed of who I am, but because the time and the place and what they call etiquette and certain things that you follow in terms of standards or that kind of stuff. I don't say, though, that perhaps if I'm eating a piece of chicken, which I don't really do, but let's assume I'm eating a piece of chicken that I would not in a hotel environment take the chicken up with the thigh or whatever up with my hand and eat it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that because that is who I am, but for the most part, in terms of eating and using the fork and that kind of stuff, I don't have a problem doing it.
Quint, all of that is fading out right now, and I'll tell you why I say this. Because I work in the hotel industry here, and I've traveled. You know, you know what I found shocking, Quint? I was in France some years ago, and I went for dinner one night, my friends and I. And because this restaurant was so popular, right, Quint, we seated at a table with a couple. They seated us at a table that was already occupied with a white couple.
Yeah.
And
wow.
You know, I find that shocking.
Wow.
I find it shocking.
That is shocking.
Because of the space. And of course, we were different in ethnicity, but the bread basket was on the table, and it's almost like they want us. We didn't know the couple didn't know us.
Yeah.
And the bread basket that was on the table is for all of us, 6 of us. Of course, you know, I mean, I didn't partake of the bread, you know, but I find it strange that we were actually seated at a table that was already occupied.
Yeah.
But you know why I say it is fading, Quint, now?
It is. I know it is fading.
When Jakarta was the biggest thing on the island, and Jakarta, along with TDC, was the biggest thing here in St. Kitts Nevis. Back in the day, there were tablecloths. Now they move away from tablecloth and they're now using mats. They're not even using mats anymore, Quint. I'm saying that to say now, should I say dying, like everything else? But Quint, you remember when this song came up, Jerusalem, by this African who sing this song Jerusalem, and there was a dance that goes with it.
Is it a gospel song?
Well, it was. Quint, I
Well,
don't know
it's
if it was soul or...
the name sounds so, because I hear a lot of African songs, and when I follow them, when I do my research, a lot of them that are hitting right now are really, a lot of them are gospel songs.
Well, this one, Jerusalem, that came up a couple of years back, and there was a dance to that song. And all over social media, Quint, then after this song and this dance, you see all over Europe, everybody in Saudi Arabia trying to do this African dance, Quint. You know? And I said, wow, look at that. But, Quint, we have to take stock of what is happening and start to take ownership of what is ours. And just like how other people can say this first and that first, America first, we have to start saying we come first. And that doesn't mean that we're isolating ourselves from the rest of the world, because, what is on the continent of Africa, Quint, that they put in the Bible and call it the milk and honey, is the resources that Europe and America, they want Africa without Africans, because they want the resources. We have to start taking ownership of our resources, Quint.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take a bit of a commercial break. The time is 10:33, and I'll be right back. And as usually happens with this system, just when you want it to react, it sticks and it doesn't do anything. So I have to get right back into and not have too much dead air there. These are things that really should not be plaguing us at this time. Anyway, I'm going to play a clip. I'm going to play a clip that feeds into a bit of what Journey was saying. Let me see if I can get to that.
In 3500, before the unification, there's a place called Tarseti. And this is what is now called Nubia. It's southern Egypt, it's northern Sudan, in this region. So Tarseti had 12 kings. This is recognized by all universities. There was 12 kings, and they were the ones that actually set the pace for the unification. So now, at that point in time, when you go back and you look at the pictures that they drew of themselves, you look at the sculptures. Sheikh Anta Diop, he studied actually the mummies in terms of the melanin, the bone structures. It is clear they were black African people. There's no doubt about it from the early times. Because really now, remember, we're dealing with 3000 BC, 3200 BC. The Greeks organized their civilization somewhere around the 8th century BC, right? So that's the 700s. So you're talking about 2,500 years later is when the Greeks begin. So look at the distortion in history.
Yeah, look at the distortion in history. 2005 years after Egypt, Greek comes into being. And today, when you research words, the etymology and this and that, they're telling you Greek. You imagine that? This is why I say we only will know this when we love ourselves enough to find out, who am I? Why am I here? Why am I being treated like this? Why is it that my color is being ostracized and demonized? And because of your love for yourself and your yearning to understand who you are, you will delve into the history that shows you who you are. And when you find out who you truly are, from your descendants on upward, you have such a pride in yourself that you don't waste time hating your brother and hating your sister and trying to oppress them and describing a barrel thing. No, because you would know that, hey, I and my people are the template. They are the example that you use to civilize yourself, and then have the audacity to call me uncivilized and to call Africa the dark continent, meaning primitive, unenlightened. Come on now. Hello, caller.
Hi, good morning, Quint. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Oh, so far, so good. It could be worse. There's always room for improvement.
There always is.
Quite interesting topics. The thing is, I was speaking to somebody today who were actually living in the Virgin Islands, and they were here last year for Nevis Mango Fest.
Yes.
And they are so excited in returning back to think it to go over to Nevis for the Mango Fest, and now they're contemplating and staying a few days in Nevis because of the cleanliness of Nevis. When you walk through the street of Charlestown, you could actually throw your food on the street and eat it up and be comfortable because the streets are clean. Nobody with no umbrella, no blockage, no nada. And so that is one of the high commendation that they give to Nevis. Now, having said that, since it is so close, and we had a little bit of that for a while, and then the dynamics just change again rapidly. Boom. Now, what you were talking about this morning was agriculture. And the introduction to agriculture have to start with leadership, and that comes from where the authorities lie, which is government. Government have the authority to control and regulate. And it doesn't mean that they must do it for employment, because those will be people who are self-employed and will be employ other people in the agricultural system. And the funny thing is that it is not something that we have not done before, this country have not gone through before. And I'm going to get quick. This country have gone through a full bloom of agriculture, which is called national agriculture. We had it from the plantation owners and the hand-downs to government when government acquired the sugarcane land. First of all, you have to get control of the dogs that eat live crops. Second, you have to get people who have live crops to register so that they could tag the animals to prevent them from eating the vegetable crops. And it ain't like, well, fence your yard, fence your land, because it's free range for all. For me to let go my sheep and goat in other people's property. That can't happen. Now, until those areas come into play, you're telling me you're not really interested in agriculture. You are playing bat and ball, now real cricket. You are not making it preparation for agriculture. The other thing is we had a Central Marketing Corporation that used to market our produce in Antigua, Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, and so on. Now, you have no marketing corporation, and so the farmers farm. The stuff have to be plowed back into the ground. It gets spoiled. Too much for the country to consume at the same time. And we are bringing in stuff at the same time where you had a control of, where you had to get a stamp to bring in things, because Central Marketing Corporation is saying that we should have it in a week, next week, and the farmers have it. So we're not going to bring it in because we have it here on the island. And so that gives preference to the farmers. So I said all of that to say this. You have to start at the beginning. And the beginning is to represent the farmers that are willing and ready to produce. I think I've said enough. You have a wonderful liquid.
Well, same to you, and thanks for your input, as always. Quite enlightening. And yes, recently, I think it was yesterday, I heard the Minister of Agriculture and other portfolios, but I'm going to put the emphasis on agriculture, and he was having a bit of a sit down, a bit of a chat. And I was I was impressed with some of the things that he said, and I said to myself, okay, I'm going to commend him. I'm going to give him some kudos when I next speak, because I heard him actually admit, and I said to one of my co-workers, one of my colleagues, I said, he actually admitted that upon, investigation and so forth, they realized there were a lot of shortfalls, shortcomings. And for an individual, it takes a level of maturity to admit that, hey, we discovered that there were some shortcomings here and shortcomings there. And the shortcomings, most of them that he outlined, were shortcomings that the farmers have been complaining about. So I said to myself, okay, kudos to you, Mr. Minister, the fact that you're admitting that there were shortcomings, and admitting that some of those shortcomings were the very same things that the farmers were griping about when people were saying, oh, everything is all well, you're just griping because you could gripe, you're just griping because you don't like the government and blah, blah, blah. It was good to hear the minister say that. But today now, when I come in and I hear one of the individuals, a farmer who is involved in agriculture, say that the government is planting hundreds of acres of sweet potatoes and hundreds of acres of other things, I'm thinking to myself, wow, so what is really happening? Because I'm ready to give the minister some kudos there, but then now I've got to step back and say, but Mr. Minister, why are you competing against? Why is the government competing against the farmers? Why? And this is what continuously baffles me. I can't understand it. You are the government. You are supposed to be there to help your people. But yet still it seems wherever you can, you fight against your people. You keep them down. We know that politics is about politics survives and succeeds from the old Western template. And this is why I say we need to look at what they do and learn from them and use it to our advantage. We need to stop doing exactly what they do in certain things, but do exactly what they do in other things that benefit us. We need to start pick and choose what is good for us and what isn't. And the original template from the Western politics is keep the people in a position where you can always control them. But that isn't the way how it should be. Hello, caller?
Yes. I'm calling to go on the air. Am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
Okay, yes. Well, greetings once more in Jesus Christ's name, the only Savior of sinners from the sins and from hell, by the gospel only, through faith only, in Jesus only, according to the Bible only. Now, what I am calling concern is this. I have said in the past, and I will say it again, and it's always very controversial. Always very controversial. But this is where I stand, because I believe this is the Bible way to go. And the Bible way is always right and proper and advantageous to us. And the opposite is disadvantageous and ruinous and destructive to us, and the wrong way to go. Now, on this issue, well, I was in big argument with it. I think it was yesterday, or the day before, and I'm going to state it again. Where health is concerned, like other factors in the economy, I believe health also should be privatized as well, because I believe this is the Bible way to go. When I read passages such as Romans 13 telling me the duties of government, and 1 Corinthians 4:6 that tell me we are not to go beyond what is written in the Bible. Now, saying that health should be privatized, I think when things are privatized, like I said, which is the Bible way to go, these things, you'll get better services, much better services, products, you name it. And the government, the less expense the government has on its hands, is the more it could lower taxes. Of course, I believe the Bible way to go as well is 100% voluntary taxation. But until we get there, at least the less expenses the government have in its hands, it could lower taxes even more and more and more continually. And therefore make everything a whole lot more and on a continuing basis be more affordable, including for the poor person. Now, one of the things people like to say, well, you know, the poor wouldn't be able to afford it. But they're not basing it in the model that I am advocating. They're basing it on how things are today with high taxation, things being very expensive and that sort of stuff. Forgetting the model and the context in which I said these things should occur in. Continually, at least continue lowering of taxation, government regulations, government spending to make things much more affordable continually, including to the poor person. Not only that, the more affordable things are, the more money people have in the pocket, is that's the more people give to charity, and the more institutions themselves that are private are able to do charity work as well.
Well, I'm not even going to delve into charity, because I even though charity is good, I'm sometimes irked that we depend too much on charity. But I agree with you to some extent, to a considerable extent, if it is that things were done the way they should be done. For instance, let me give you a hypothetical. So companies come here and most everything is privatized, including health, as you're suggesting. Here is the only way it will work. If these companies, when they come here and they privatize these things, the people they employ, they pay these people at a rate that is good for the product, the output product, meaning I come here, I set up a company, I pay my workers in a way that they're comfortable, I get the proper product, people don't complain about services and that kind of stuff, and as you said, government decreases taxes and that kind of stuff. One of the reasons why government feels it doesn't decrease taxes is because, and people don't seem to understand this, government wants to control everything. If government control everything, then government would have to get taxes to subsidize and to deal with roads and
Yes.
But if government doesn't control everything and the private sector controls everything, then it means the government have less to do. And government
Yes.
now can deal in the things that would better enhance its people. So I never had a problem with that. The problem is when, let me use for instance, McAlpine, when that deepwater port was being built up there at Bird Rock, and McAlpine came and McAlpine said, we have a contract where we have to finish this port in a certain times, and we want to meet that deadline. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay our workers, our truckers, or this and that. We're going to pay them this amount of money, and we're going to pay them also in US. And the government union came in and said, no, you can't do that. Because if you do that, this is going to happen, and people ain't going to work here, and people ain't going to work. So then you find, you understand the problem?
Yes. And we discussed that before on a previous program.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
so if it is that government is going to allow private companies to come in, pay the people, then we wouldn't have so much of a complaint about the poor, you know. We have the poor because government want to control everything, and then you have a lot of people who can't get work because somehow the system knows you didn't vote for them, you know. So government picks and choose who's going to eat and who's going to survive. And this is why when one government change, the next one who comes in, the people say, well, it's our turn now. And then it changes back and they say, it's our turn now. So it's Labour turn when Labour is in, it's Pam turn when Pam is in, it's Unity turn when Unity is in, it's CCM turn, and it's nonsense. You understand? It's supposed to be everybody's turn, no matter who the government is.
That is true. But you see, the more your taxes are as well, the higher they are as well, is the less the private sector going to be employing people.
But that is what I just said. I agreed
Yes.
with what you're saying. I agreed
Yes.
with what you're saying.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but
And one of the things that hurt me hard, Chris. Yes,
but
sorry,
mind
Chris,
you,
sorry to cut you.
but wait, mind you, I don't agree with every aspect of everything you say, which you are well aware of.
Of course,
Okay, go ahead.
without saying. That goes without saying. Yes. One of the things that hurt me hard, Chris, and it's how we are cutting our own throat, thinking that that is the best way to go when we're actually killing ourselves, when we think government's supposed to be doing this and government's supposed to be owning that and this. Like I mentioned, the health sector. Well, let me say this. I believe government should privatize the hospital, clinics, and that sort of stuff, but to locals. Okay? To locals, and then if people want to build their own hospitals and clinics and so on, be the locals foreigners, then that is okay with me too.
But hear this. Again, this is where I agree and disagree. I agree, but should it just be locals just because you want locals, or should it be locals who are qualified to the extent they've done their research, they have the proper qualifications, and you are confident that they will give a good service?
Well, anybody could own a hospital, you know. You don't have to be a medical doctor to own a hospital. It's the staff who should know the medical knowledge.
But that is what I'm saying.
Could own a hospital.
But
Anybody could own a hospital.
But that is what I'm saying. I am saying it's not just about the ownership, it's about the quality of the services.
Right. And I will bet you the worst private hospital will give you a better service than the best government hospital.
But I'm not going,
look,
but I'm not going on that premise. I'm going to ask you the question again because you're moving away from what I'm saying. What I'm saying is,
okay,
I hear you when you say you should empower locals. But what I'm saying, don't just empower locals to say you empower locals. You empower locals who, for instance, I look at you and I say, you know, I'm going to give Greg the ability to build a hospital because I know his history and I know he'll be able to build a proper hospital, but I also know he has the links and he can get the certified people and the service will be good. That is what I'm saying.
Yes, and I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. But let me say that, and I would bet you, again, I would say, in that context, even the worst private hospital will be much better than the best government hospital. But let me say this as well, and the services will be more up to date, that's also. But let me say this. Let me say one of the advantages that we do not have now that grieves me very much, especially for the poor man. If we was to do it that way, which I believe is the Bible way to go, okay? People needing to go overseas, especially poor people needing to go overseas for medical care, would be able to do it here. And don't tell me, do not tell me it would be easier for them to go overseas to get medical here than to go to a private hospital here. You know, I know one person right now. The person told me it's going to take them $30-something thousand to go overseas for medical care, that include airfare and all the other.
Yeah,
things.
airfare, hotel accommodation, and that kind of stuff. It takes up a lot of expenses
Don't
added
tell
to
me.
Yeah,
Don't tell me. And the person is a poor person, but the person is working on it. Don't tell me if that person is able to find money to do that they won't be able to find money to go to a local private hospital for the same thing. Because I guarantee you it would not be as much.
But again, I put emphasis on not just going local for the sake of being local, because our politicians tend to do that, you know. Our politicians, if they're going to go local, it's going to be politically influenced. It's going to be, I'm going to go local because that person there. I got some strings I could pull with that person. I know, or it is my family, or it is my brother, or it is my, But we don't want you to go local on those aspects. We want you to go local on quality in terms of product, quality in terms of services.
Yeah. When I say privatize, I mean privatize in a free market, capitalist context. Meaning this: when government tend to privatize things, they tend to do it very wrongly. The proper way, for example, if we're going to privatize the hospital, the clinics, and what's not, each clinic, each hospital, each healthcare center supposed to be owned by different people to generate competition. And like I said, if other people want to build their own things in addition to already there, allow them to do so, because the more that come on scene is the more competition you have and the better it is.
And the more and the more quality competition that you have, the better the price is.
The better, and competition would do that.
Yes.
Competition always do that, But we are getting the worst because we are not doing things rightly the biblical way, as I said, that they should go. And like I said, a lot of these cases that government send away overseas for medical care are people putting their hand in the pocket for private to go overseas for care and medical care and that sort of stuff. A ton of it would be able to be done locally, because private stuff provides better services and better products than government, and therefore that would save people a lot of money who have to now go overseas because we do not have such and such services and products here. Government always give you the inferior. The private sector give you much better.
Okay.
Much better and better quality. Okay, thank you, Quint. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And now we're going to take a bit of a commercial break, and I'll be right back.
You found the sound 98.9 Winn FM.
Here are your Horse's Value Match IGA Blue Tag Specials.
Running April 2nd to April 15th.
Post family size honey bunches of oats and Pebble cereals $19.99. Quaker Oats regular and quick $19.99. Essential everyday chunk and shredded cheeses just $7.99. Blue Bunny ice cream $25.99. IGA or essential everyday frozen waffles $19.99. Arm & Hammer liquid detergent just $39.99.
And now our value deals. IGA Essential Everyday Mac and Cheese $2.99. IGA Essential Everyday Canned Tuna $3.49. Essential Everyday Breadcrumbs $9.99. Essential Everyday Barbecue Sauce $7.99. The Colgate Toothpaste $6.99. The Colgate Toothbrush Medium and Soft $4.99. Shop Smart, Shop Value Mart. Tell them in Spanish.
Sea listo y haga sus compras aquí en
Value Mart.
More than 42 million cars from 19 different car companies are being recalled for faulty airbag inflators. Repairs are fast, easy, and free. The problem isn't with the airbag, it's with the airbag inflator. Because the inflator can rupture, shooting shrapnel through the airbag, which can cause serious injury or even death. Don't risk it, fix it.
Please contact TDC Automotive Division to find out if your Toyota vehicle is affected by the Takata airbag recall. Visit or call us at 465-2511 in St. Kitts or at 469-5430 in Nevis.
And I'm right back at you. Don't know why that didn't play there. Anyway, the time is precisely 11 o'clock, and I'm back. We're back on Voices, and I'm discussing or trying to get you, the listening audience, to understand why it is that we as a black people, and I put emphasis on that, it seems as if though we've reached that point where we as a black people are afraid to say black. We can say anything but black. And even worse, it seems as if though we can never say, I'm black and proud to be black. You understand? Imagine that, we as a black people. You say that and people look at you like, well, what is wrong with that? And then someone will say, well, what happened if a white person say I'm white and proud? I don't have a problem with that. White people are saying it all the time. They don't even have to say it verbally. It's in our faces. It's like when they come in our proximity, they expect us to acquiesce to them because they're white. So we as black people have got to start identifying ourselves with a sense of pride. And we have got to reach that point where we say, look, I'm proud of who I am. You understand? I am proud of my color, my ethnicity, my roots, my everything. Hello, caller? Hello, caller? Well, try to call back if you can. And I'll see if I can await your call. If not, I'm going to play another clip. Hello, caller? Hello?
Hi, Quint.
Yes.
I'm not so sure that what we use in the word healthcare when people go to the hospital as healthcare, I think it should be called health recovery, to recover your health. Because I think all the care for health should be the introduction and the preventative measure that should be put in place to prevent it from happening. And the thing is, sometimes we think that in our mind that if you go overseas, you get better medical attention than where you could get in St. It varies. At the same time, there's some of the doctors who are here that practice medicine have to really work because they have not the equipment and the testing machine to test, to give them the answers that they're really looking for. So, in other words, to me, what I'm saying is that you never know when and where what is going to happen to you and where you will need proper medical attention. But the thing is, to maintain good health is the preventative measure that Quint have put in place over the past years that have kept him in the position of where he is. Mind you, at the same time, there are people who have done similar, or maybe the same, and end up in a different position than you are.
Yeah.
But ounce of prevention is better than a whole pound of cure.
But
are we preparing to...
Even in relation to your point, and when you say people might have done exactly what I have done and not get the same result, that is true because it's all about genetics and so on and so forth. But also it depends on when they started doing some of the things that I've done. Fortunately for me, the things that I've done them at a very young age. I can't tell anyone that I planned it. I don't know. Somehow, this is why I always say I believe in a higher force, because somehow, even at a young age, I followed a particular path, because I had a great aunt she wasn't so much into these modern medicine and that kind of stuff. She knew the different bushes. She could tell me, a lot of the bushes she taught me when I was young, I've forgotten, because I remember there was a particular bush with some seeds that she told me, if you ever go out and you're going to be expecting to eat from people, make sure you swallow 2 or 3 of these seeds so that if you go there and the people have ulterior motives and they try to poison you, this will be a sort of preventative, let me tell you, our old people were really deep into certain things, into the bush, and they knew. So at a very young age, I adopted certain things. At a very young age, I decided not to drink alcohol. At a very young age, I decided not to experiment with drugs. You understand? And I hear people say things like, "Oh, I'll try everything once," and people have this notion that, oh, I will try that thing because I'm strong enough to deal with it. But me being a realist, I remember as a young person in terms of drug when I heard people taking things like LSD and those kind of stuff that were around before we heard about crack and that kind of stuff. I remember saying to myself as a very young person, I'm not going to try that because I don't think my body will be able to fight that. So I'm not, because I had heard stories and I'd listened to this program Unshackle?
Yes, I do.
I heard so many of those programs where people said, I tried this because I felt my immune system, I was going to be strong enough to, and it beat them down and they wind up being drug addicts. And I remember as a young boy saying, I'm not going to try that because and so it all depends on when people start doing some of the things that I've done.
All things are lawful, but not all things are experienced.
Yeah.
And so I can some of the things that you have experienced, that you have gone through, I can actually learn from them and don't make the same mistakes that you make.
Yeah.
And evidently, we should be able to live a better life. But for some reason or another, we have a tendency that we don't learn. And so instead of taking responsibility, lots of things we should take responsibility for.
Yeah.
But we want to show the responsibility to somebody else.
I'm glad you made that point. I'm glad you made that point.
We want to blame government. We want to blame with parents.
Yeah.
We want to blame with friends. But you don't take responsibility for your own action.
Yeah.
If somebody give you sugar, get the milk and the bush and make your tea. Somebody give you the bush, get the rest and make it. You want them to give you everything?
Because even in terms of crime, we don't want to take the responsibility. We tend to say, oh, if the government had done that. Or a lot of us who, like me, dig into history, and this is why sometimes I say to Journey, at what point do we take onus? Because a lot of us like to say, oh, we were slaves and 400. Yes, that's part of it.
Yes,
that's part of it. But this is what I'm saying. How is it that I'm coming from that enslaved person just like so many others, but I'm going different? What is it?
Quint, the other day I look at a young man and he say everything and he know everything. And only thing could have come to my mind, I say you're one of the best example in St. that a young man should not be. Because you know everything and you do nothing. You talk about everything, but there is no example that they could show me what you do. Show me the talk you talk and the walk you walk. Because you want to tell everybody everything and know everything, but you don't do anything. There's no example.
Yeah.
And lots of people learn by not so much what you say, but what you do and how you do it.
That's it. Lead by
and
example.
When you think that people are not watching you, they are watching.
Yeah.
And they are listening.
Yeah.
Because you yourself is a teacher within your own life.
Yeah.
And so that is how we know that there are lots of politicians who actually can't afford to care. It's not that they don't care, but they can't afford to. They're so busy looking after themselves.
Why can't they? Hold a minute there. Why? That's a very strong word. Why can't they when they applied for the job?
They apply for the job to benefit themselves. So all of the affordability is on them.
I hear you now. I just wanted to be clear on that.
How can you do something for me when you need and busy doing it for yourself?
Yeah.
And I must commend the Prime Minister too. He put the water, setting up the water straight in Cleon, and he came to the public and he demonstrated as to what position he is taking in terms of the fuel and the price of the fuel that is going up. And I was on the road only this morning and I noticed hardly any vehicle. I thought we was getting a hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
People cut down and they are driving up and down.
Yeah.
Because gasoline is almost $20 per gallon, which will be about $8 per gallon.
And it's going to get...
So people are cutting back and they're driving.
And it's going to get worse.
Unless it's going to get worse, and that is very good.
Wow.
But he needed to go further. and adjust the custom system that he is taking illegally.
You know, that's another good point.
He needs to fix those things. He could fix them. There's a lot of things that he needs to fix, that he could fix. And he might not get a lot of people behind him to like it, but just do them because they're necessary to be done. And the system have as a coda. You know, when people are cheating the system, you know, when people are getting, but at the same time, the system itself taking money from people illegally. How can you charge VAT and taxes? You're paying taxes and VAT is a tax and you tax in tax. That shouldn't be.
I told you that our leaders follow the bad examples from external. And the bad examples from external is, I mean, you look at the tax system in England and so many parts of Europe, the people can barely survive, you know.
I know that, but in my mind, we, for government side, have one of the best tax systems in the world. We have no tax return. All government do is collect. You pay for everything. Government never pay you back anything yet. You know, in the States, you pay taxes, you have tax return, and they write you a check and send you back that. You ain't getting back no check from government. No way. Which is not bad, but because they have enough money to constantly pay for this and pay for that. But then we rent everything from everybody. And we don't repair our building. We pay cleaners. We have maintenance men, and we don't maintain our equipment. Buy a new one. Replace it with a new one. That ain't no good. Those are things that we need to look at. All he do is just make a list. Get somebody. Don't even talk. Just don't even write. Get somebody to make the list for him. And when he sit down, he look at the list that he jotted down that go over by the person who making the notes for him. And make decision as you go along, because you're not going to get anything done if you let people alone to do what they want to do and how they want to do it. Communication is the key. And if you break down, if you don't have it, and every minister do what they want, because all ministers serve at the pleasure of the Prime Minister, you know. All of them. You must lead by example. And when you lead by example, that's why I say very difficult to take things from people. And don't take things from people else they're going to control you. Don't take things from Rams and all those people when you're campaigning. Because when you get in power, you have to do what they say. Because they give you the sodas and the drinks to give the poor ass people, sorry to say that, to give to the poor people, and you catch them and they vote for you. And when you get in power, the people that you promise that you're going to do things for, you can't act in the position because you take the things. You take the people things. And they want the due reward. Politics is a dirty game. And I think all those fellows who go into politics goes in with good intention. But somewhere along the line,
you think so?
They cannot have they don't have the money to afford the campaign.
Look,
so when they take from those who supply the campaign, they have to do what they say.
Look, that statement that a lot of people going with good intentions, I've been reconsidering that, you know. How can you go in with good intentions into a system that you know is corrupt in the first place? You know how it works.
More system you can't fix from outside. You have to go inside to fix it. And I'd agree to go inside and fix it. But sometimes when you go inside and you can fix it, if you rub against a mangy dog, no clean dog ever turn a clean dog mangy. A mangy dog always turn a clean dog mangy.
But look back as far...
When you go in there, you rub against a mangy dog, you will get mangy too.
Look back as far as you can and ask yourself, who you see going in who decided to fix what was there?
I wish I could tell you.
Well,
I wish I could tell you, but that's a very hard question. But sometimes we could get things wrong because we know enough to know that we don't know enough. And sometimes when we see things, we come to our own conclusion because we think we know so much, we still don't know enough. We don't know the reason why they do certain things. And sometimes I'm sorry for these guys, you know, because they have good bed and they can't sleep, nice car and they can't take a comfortable drive, nice clothes. Nobody want them around them. They smile at everybody, but the smile ain't real. Sometimes these people more suffering than those who are out here who don't have it and who can't afford it. And they wish they could do something to help themselves, but they keep thinking even though they're getting richer, they're still poor in the strength and the energy they're laughing, but they ain't happy. They're not really happy.
Who tell you they're not
sad.
happy? Who tell you that? Look, there's a lot of things that we assume that I've been rethinking now that I'm a bit older and wiser, and I've come to the conclusion that a lot of these people, that's how they get their happiness. They get their happiness from exploiting others, feeling that they're superior to others, beating down others, and they have no sympathy and heart whatsoever. We tend to think like, oh, from our perspective, oh, well, you know, they should have a heart because we think we put ourselves in that place, but we're not them.
If that's what we call happiness, a fella eating until his belly full, gluttonous, fat falling all over, he can't hold in his pants, he can't sleep at night time, that's happiness. But he look good from outside, but I don't want that inside here. I don't want that. I don't want that. I want when I go sleep at night, I go sleep.
Yeah.
They can't sleep. They want to know who going to take from them or who coming to get the seat or who get in this and so on because I sweet them. No, that is not living.
Well,
that's not living. They're living a fake life. That ain't real. Me like to laugh with everybody and talk with people and go home if I feel like and don't go if I don't feel like.
yeah.
Sometimes they have to show up because they vote for them. Nobody vote for me. Nobody vote for Quint. Quint could tell somebody and Quint have a choice to choose whether he want to say it or he don't say it. Then they have to be careful what they say because they lose a vote. I get a vote. You know, they're not comfortable. They're not comfortable. I sorry for them. I sorry for them.
Yeah.
So, but you know how life is. I do wish them all the best, and if they succeed for the people, doing for the people, we will be successful.
Yeah.
And if they fail, it's our cost and our failure.
Yeah.
I think I have said enough, Quint, so have a good day.
Same to you. And that point about happiness, it because I've been thinking, like, for instance, look at a lot of the artists. I was thinking recently of artists who get all that money and they have these mansions and they live this lavish life, and then you hear how they die. Look at Elvis Presley. People say, oh, he's the king of pop, a king of rock and roll and blah, blah, blah. He had his heyday, and then look at how he died, in the bathtub overdose of drugs. Look at Whitney. Beauty, one of the greatest voices ever to exist. Money. Fame. And look at how she died. It is so sad. Because, as the caller was saying, you're surrounded by people who don't love you. You're surrounded by people who surround you because of what they can get from you. You are their banking system. You are their survival. And you would think that if you're around someone and you depend on someone to survive, you would have some empathy for that person and you would have some, but no, because of greed and lust and envy, the very person you depend on, you're trying your best to pull them down. They can't depend on you. They can't turn to you for friendship. And it's a sad thing. Let me take a bit of a commercial break and I'll be right back.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Winn FM.
Come, build with us at Hostels Building and Nevis Centers. We don't just sell materials, we help you build your dreams. Whether it's a new home, a renovation, or a DIY project, we're here to make it happen. That's why we say, build with us. From foundation to finish, come to our stores where we have the best in building materials, hardware, tools, paints, expert advice, and more. Whatever you need, you can count on us. So if you're ready to get started, build with us. With Hostels Building and Nevis Centers, you're not just building a structure, you're building a future. Let us help you create something amazing. Dream with us, plan with us, grow with us, build with us. Come build with us at Hostels Building and Nevis Centers today. Build with us at Hostels.
Yeah, and again, I expected the theme to play and it just bumps over it. Yeah, so I'm back and let me see if I can go to the phone lines. Hello, caller.
Good day, Quint.
Good day to you. What do you have to say to me now?
I want to agree with you in something you just said. One of the greatest fallacies that we have around the world is that rich people are not happy.
Yeah.
You know, folks who don't have it like to think so. It makes them feel
It's
better,
true.
I guess.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not true. Okay, and of course you could point to examples of rich people who die miserably, and all of that. But trust me, most rich people, if you ask them to give up what they have, and the poor, they're not going to choose that one bit.
But the Bible said it. The Bible says it. You know, when the Bible says it is easier for a camel. Listen to this. You know, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Let me repeat that again. It is easier for a camel. We know the size of a camel, right? It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. That's the hole in a needle. So think about the biggest needle you've ever seen, and it is nowhere compared to a camel. And a camel can easier go through that than a rich man entering into the kingdom or giving up their wealth. Could you imagine that?
Well, that statement is very loaded, because it can also imply that the rich man may have gotten his riches in a very sinful way, and so there's no way that he can get to heaven. Okay?
No, because it put emphasis on the riches, you know. It put emphasis on the riches, and I'm not gonna go, because we can always go off on a million tangents now. I'm gonna take it in the contents that it's given. It says it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich person to do whatever. And I'm taking it on the clear context of how it is stated. Because if I take it otherwise, like I said, and like you've just implied, there can be a million, trillion other aspects we can go off on. But
bearing in mind what was said, you would think that anybody who wants to go to heaven should not be rich, right? Should give up their riches, no?
No.
Won't they want to go? Won't people want to go to heaven? Don't you think?
I don't want to go to heaven.
No.
No, I don't believe in a heaven.
Okay, you don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Fine, but I'm talking about those who do believe in it.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Where is heaven?
Huh?
Where is heaven?
Well, I'm not going to argue about the concept of heaven.
Oh, well, it's just like the eye of a needle. It's just like the eye of a needle thing that you wanted to bring up, because as a young boy,
no, you brought up that.
No, you took it off in terms of the eye of a needle into a different aspect than what is clearly stated. And I was saying it could go off anywhere. And now I'm saying the same thing in terms of this. Because as a young child, I asked, where is heaven? And we heard heaven is up there and hell is... So where is hell? Hell is in the earth. Then you realize the earth is only one planet. What happened to Mars? And I can assure you, I am sure we haven't bumped onto it yet, but I don't believe we're the only intelligent life anywhere in this whole big, vast universe. Somehow, whoever created it have left us so far apart that perhaps when we do bump into each other, because you see what happened when the Europeans discovered the New World. You understand? So, hey.
Well, the thing is, and that's why I said it's going down a rabbit hole.
It's going down a rabbit hole.
The concept of heaven, but let's deal with the reality of
the
fact that what it says, what that was basically saying, is that for whatever reason, and I agree that it can be a million reasons, the concept, the Christian concept of heaven, it's difficult for rich people to get there.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, because they use a camel and the needle, it sounds as if it's impossible.
Yeah.
Yet there are very rich Christians who expect to go to heaven.
They expect to go to heaven, but who say they'll go? And perhaps, let's say, you know the old saying, if I could be a fly on the wall, let's say we were able to be a fly on the wall of their homes, we might see a whole different story.
Okay, yeah.
Do you realize that the children of most of the preachers, and this is a thing that has been analyzed. Do you realize the children of most of the preachers of the gospel rebel against what they grew up hearing and learning?
Yeah, I've heard of that phenomenon. Yeah.
Okay. Don't you think there's a valid reason for that?
Yes, I suppose there's a psychological reason for it as well. I mean, to be quite honest, right? The children of people like pastors and so on, they people have very high expectations of them, and sometimes it
too
can't
high.
be.
Yeah, it can't be met.
Too high.
Yeah.
And that could also be the reason why those rich people that you spoke about who died tragically, they are presented with very high expectations. They're supposedly role models. They're supposed to do no wrong, and they're supposed to be almost perfection in the eyes of their fans and so on. And they can't live up to that.
And in a lot of cases they don't. I can't speak to Whitney, but I've done research on Elvis Presley, and Elvis Presley was into a lot of bad things.
And to bring it closer home, the caller before was saying about the expectations of politicians. Trust me, a lot of them come to you when it's campaign time, and we don't really vet them. They come to you with the best Sunday school face and the best intentions and the promises and everything nice,
But how can we vet them really?
Well, for one thing, right? Most of them do have a record, They've lived among us, right? It's a small community. You know how they have lived among us. And so you should not be surprised if when they go in there, they drop all the masks and so on, and then they have the kind of lifestyle and so on, that, all of a sudden we're surprised by it. That's who they were from the beginning.
But how do we know? For instance, let's use our present Prime Minister, humble, growing up quite humble, blah, blah, blah. He was afforded, fortunately, some opportunities to get a higher education and so on and so forth, and now he's in the position of leadership. How do we know that the outcome would be the outcome? It's almost impossible.
Okay, I agree. You can't. It's difficult to really forecast what would happen. I agree. I would concede that.
Yes.
Okay, but in all honesty, and I'm not talking about the current prime minister or any particular prime minister.
Yeah.
But I am saying that this is a small community, and a lot of these politicians have some kind of story behind them. I am sure, Quint, you have heard some. Okay? And so it's up to you, knowing that, to decide, okay, well, I'll still give them a chance. But when they do get in, and all of a sudden things change, they look after somebody else's interests and not yours, all the conscious talk and so on that used to go on now appears different. The politics that they used to criticize before they got in, they practice it even more when they get in. Well, what are you supposed to do? there's one pundit I heard put it this way, right? We have a choice between bad, worse, and worst. Okay? In those kind of circumstances, for us, what are we supposed to do? What do we do in a case like that?
But
I mean, I know what.
When I look back at our history from my perspective, what I see happening, and maybe I don't know, maybe that might be a moving away from it. I'm not sure, but what I saw happening was people voted along party lines. So it was always about which side you were on, and so too much to the extent that you would hear, well, when the bell rings, school call in, find your class.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So
That used to be so, but from all appearances, it seems as if the brands have all been tainted.
yeah, I would agree. I would
Yeah,
agree.
the Labour brand is damaged, I would say, because the kinds of stuff that's happening, you would not really expect the Labour government to be involved in.
Yeah.
You can say the same thing about the other parties as well. Somehow, it's like there's no principle behind them. You know, the principles are out the door. It's all about getting elected now. Okay, that's first and foremost. Okay, and it's all about the personality, our personalities, right? And that is what we have to be very careful.
But
of.
what about governments learning from their mistakes? For instance, I'm going to show you an example, and it takes, and maybe that is why the only living national hero. Sometimes I wonder. I say, he's going on quite well, going up in age, and we're not perfect. And what about when it is that you, as a human being, you're coming. You might have some good intentions, you advise this way or the other, you make some mistakes and you own up to them. For instance, when Dr. Kennedy Simmons first got in, you remember whenever he was going to have an address to the nation that they used to take off all the other stations, you remember that?
Yes.
And people didn't like that. People felt like, hey, that's a dictatorship. And look how quick he owned up to it and changed it. But what we're seeing now is we're seeing leaders who would do things and people are griping against it and they don't twist one way or the other.
They regard it, in a strange way, they regard it as weak. If you
acquiesce, that's it.
You know?
Yeah.
And I can give you a better example, right? You remember all this hoopla about the jail and how it was being
financed, yeah.
Right? Yeah. You also remember the school, all the happenings around the school.
Yeah.
Again, the previous government was criticized for giving some company, I think it was $15 million for managing dirt, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you now get in, okay, would you expect the same things to be happening?
That is a question.
You're gonna let your predecessor in office come into Parliament and say why a company is being paid $27 million in advance, okay? Why is a school being done by a company, regardless of what, I don't know, connections they have here.
Yeah.
But basically they have the company in Barbados and the shipping stuff here.
Mm.
And it's being done via CBI as well.
Mm.
What has changed? You know, you have to remember all that railing against those kinds of practices, right? Where's the openness and transparency and all those things? And, you know, the go in and they do the exact same thing.
Well, it reminds me of the story of the fox and the grapes. And the grapes only became sour when the fox couldn't get them.
Couldn't get them, yeah. That's exactly right. But that still leaves us in a quandary of what to do.
It does.
You know,
yeah.
My position in this is that you reward you don't reward whoever is currently in office who is messing up. You don't. You just don't.
Yeah.
Even if it's unfortunate that we have people outside that we have to choose. You don't reward.
Oh boy, sorry about that. Mr. McMahon. I tried to engage another caller, but the conference button wasn't on, and it automatically dropped you, and I don't even have the other caller. When someone is here, they should always engage the conference button. It should never be off. Hello, caller?
Hi, good morning still.
Yeah, good day. Hold a second.
Morning.
Hold a second. Hello?
Oh,
okay.
Someone got disconnected?
Yeah, I said the conference button on this phone should always be on. But I didn't check that it was on, and I tried to engage another, and it dropped you.
Okay. So somebody else. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll finish up. I'm just saying that we should not reward current holders of office, right, with another term, because in all honesty, what they've done is deceived us, you know.
They have.
It's deception.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, it might involve unfortunately, bringing back somebody who was bad before, but, you know, there's always the hope that, well, they learn a lesson and might do things.
There's always the hope, you know. That is my ultimate hope, you know. What else can we do?
What else can we do? That's what I'm saying. You know,
Yeah.
reward the deception?
Yeah.
No. That should not be. Okay? And so, yes, I stick with my mantra. Change until you get the change that you want.
Yeah.
That's the only way, unfortunately.
Okay.
You know, it's tough.
Yeah.
All right, then.
Thanks for your input. Yeah. Hello, Africa. And before you speak, I played a clip before, and it is one of the clips that I got from you, right? And because it is a short bit, I played it, and I have another one I'm going to play because it is a short bit. When I play these clips, I play them because I'm aware of the history, and when I get these short bits that it puts it in a synopsis, briefly, I always play them. So before you say anything,
I didn't hear the clip that you played.
So before you say anything, let me play the second one. It is also quite short, and it is one I got from you. Okay, so let me play it now.
The pyramids were built by human beings, and by the way, have nothing to do with slavery, nothing to do with a single Jew building the pyramid. But the evidence showed that Abraham, the first Jew, was not born when the last pyramid was built, and that's the reason. You know, it's no way it's written in Torah, the Jewish Bible, that Jews build pyramid. This is a folkloric nonsense. Now, because the first time we are hearing of Abraham is about 1675 before the Common Era. The exact time we're hearing about the Hyksos, the first non-African invaders of Egypt. The Africans of Egypt are already in the 13th dynastic period. The invasion is going to end the 13th and start a new, or the first foreign invasion. All 95 of the pyramids are already built. The last of the 95 pyramids built in the 12th dynasty, Abraham isn't born until the 13th dynasty. So you can't build a pyramid before you're born. The pyramids.
Yeah, you heard that. You can't build a pyramid before you're born. How are you going to? I mean, by the time we had the first invasion of the Caucasian or the whites, it was all the 90-something pyramids had been built. But you see the history they give us?
And it is sad because the voice you heard in that audio is none other than Dr. He affectionately known as Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben Jassana, he was a professor in the Cornell University.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this though. I would prefer if when they do these brief history that they leave out. You notice the music was leave those music either way in the background. It is clashing with the clarity of the voice. But go ahead.
Yes, and that voice there, you know, his voice, our ancestors should be etched in the annals of our history, because this Dr. Ben has traveled. He has traveled and traveled and traveled. He have even sat with acclaimed professors in their different fields. He has sat with rabbis, and he have done an excellent job. That even today you could have played that.
He's done.
And it resonates as it.
He has done an excellent job in research.
Yes.
Yes.
To say that, our history did not start with somebody called Abraham.
Yeah.
You know, because when Abraham was yet probably young or not yet born, the 59th pyramid. See how many pyramids he mentioned? How many we know of? 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
Or 5?
99
those,
he mentioned.
And the Giza Plateau.
Yeah.
Right? The tree, like those that replicate the 3 stars in the Orion belt of the constellation of Orion, or the constellation of the bull.
Yeah.
You know? And yes, because, you know, we need to set the record straight here, because we are bombarded with religiosity and dogma that, yes, it started from Abraham. Picture Abraham born as Johnny come lately.
But
and
Africa...
all of the other people who was born before, who are they?
But
nobody's?
But Africa, look, the more we delve and we research, and this is why I play these clips, the more we delve and we research into factual history, we realize even this thing about the Jews being in bondage in Egypt and all of those are lies.
Fall apart. It's fall apart. The myths
yeah.
assert themselves. And a lot of it came via conquest, where new nations come assert themselves, and they want to borrow and to extrapolate what I call plagiarize or plagiarism. They want to plagiarize other older cultures' way of life, what you call cultural. There are some new words that you could put to it. You know what I mean?
Cultural appropriation.
Appropriation and all of that there, to appropriate other people's way of life.
Yeah.
And lay claim to it by patenting and all of these things here. I does a unique tour, and when I go and I do you have like the dolphin like from the sandbox tree, and you know what I mean. So people appreciate these things, because I told them, look, we didn't have the Toys R Us store. I knew of one Toys Land that got burned in probably 1969.
Yeah, I remember
there
that.
by Bank Street.
Yeah.
You know, by TDC there.
I
remember that.
I think it was called Lacedos or something like that.
Lacedo, the toys that But I tell them our Toys R Us came from nature, the ecology, where we made dumper trucks and steering wheel and all of these things. From the sandbox tree, we made four wheels like those doom buggy wheels today.
Yeah.
That, my guests, they gravitate to it. A lady gave me $20 for one of those little sandbox dolphin-like things.
Yeah.
She was so impressed, but I want to get back to the Abraham and say, no to people. There was something before that, long before that. And it has been erased. Now, I go back, but I do Sankofa. I don't go back to be fixated in something that I know I have to move forward on, as if I'm stuck into an era that, you know what I mean, as like I'm helpless. Because it's all good to go back and to reminisce, but not to get stuck and fixated as if like, why I'm hopeless, I cannot move forward. No.
That is why
you don't wake up to keep people in their sleep.
Yeah.
You wake up to awaken others.
Yeah.
You know? Yes, because you have to be careful. You got to be a surgeon. You have to be a doctor at this thing. And I apply that. But what I wanted to call in to say, really, because I have to dance a yard before I dance abroad. And to reminisce and to do my song cover, it's all good. I want to say that there was an ad hoc committee that we heard about, set up by the Prime Minister to look at a piece of legislation called the SSD 2025 or the SEZ 2025. It will be good that what the Attorney General enact as a piece of legislation, because our Attorney General is the eyes and the ears of the government. It will be good that that ad hoc committee stays in place and look at other things that this present administration should be going into Parliament and strengthening, such as the strengthening of what our First National Heroes started with the beach, access to the beach and all of that.
But Africa...
They're procrastinating on these things as if they're supposed to be going into Parliament and bringing things to the fore.
But Africa...
strengthen these things.
Africa, look, I'm glad you made that point, because this committee, and you notice we're not hearing much about this SSZ, but we're hearing, I don't know if it's...
I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
Because earlier in the conversation with you and Mr. McMahon, right? You all spoke about something that is really there, right? And that committee should stay in place to look at these other things that is confronting us presently. As it's unfolding and it's getting more worse, because we're hearing about the farmers and all of that. So that committee is supposed to be looking at and strengthening other laws, because someone said earlier
Africa,
that the Prime Minister, someone said that earlier, that the Prime Minister, about announcing, former Prime Minister announced and other radio stations had to be shut off. And so, yes, if the ad hoc committee was put in place, it speaks that they listen. Or do they listen where they want to listen to?
But Africa...
It speaks that they listen, because that was confronted the nation with the SEC and the potential Destiny project. And the Prime Minister listened and said, boy, we're going to put something in place to deal with it, because this is a womb. This is a womb in the flesh of the nation.
But Africa, I'm trying to interject to tell you that I hear what you're saying, but you're assuming that this ad hoc committee is going to benefit us. I'm not going to jump the gun here, because as I was saying, I am hearing ripples that election, about snap election and that kind of stuff. And I'm a thinking person. I don't sit down, like I said to people, I don't sit down on my brain. You understand? And I'm wondering, all of a sudden we're not hearing much about the SSZ. So let's be hypothetical now. Let's assume that a snap election is called and the present regime wins. Next thing, after the present regime wins, all this silence about the SSZ, all of a sudden it expedites, and everything in terms of the people wanting the place to do what they want, do their own laws and all that kind of stuff, that is implemented. What happens then?
Yes, you put a lot just then on the just now for this person, because
so I'm not gonna jump the gun. Look, politicians.
I saw bulletin board in my community, right? And I'm following your train of thought as well. And others, which was in number 2, which was from a previous. I'm following the chain of thought, Quint. But hear me out. It's going to get worse. And so if they're thinking about a snap election, they better call it now. Because they will lose more worse than how they will lose now if it lingers on. With all of what is in the air.
That is what I've been saying.
Put on your snap committee and bring it on. We're ready.
Because
I have some. I am not into. I'm not a politician. I'm not a candidate. I'm not into that. But I have a concern for the youth of this country. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and get some things organized so I can reach the youth.
Africa,
in my own
Africa, way. Look at what is happening now. Look at this present regime and see what it has done for its people, right? See what it has done for its people in housing, in education, the hospital, whatnot. And look at what it has.
You want to tell me they're going to call a snap election?
But let me finish.
Let them try what me and Motley did.
But let me finish.
Call it.
But let me finish. Hear what I'm saying. Taking those things in consideration, right? Then let's look at the things that they're doing to help the others. We heard, look, this SSD thing would have gone full scale if people hadn't said, hey, wait, let's look at that, you understand that. But here is it. Now you're taking people who have their places on the beach, you're displacing them. In all honesty, Africa, we're seeing more done for external individuals than the people inside. So I don't understand how they're going to call an election. I really don't. But that is what we're hearing.
Bring it on.
But that is what we're hearing.
Yes. It's in the air.
And I don't look. And
well,
I do not trust this committee. You're talking about, this committee should look at other things. What has this committee done so far to prove that they are working in the interest of the people? Nothing. They're just quiet. And I am saying, if you use a hypothetical and an election is called whenever, I am saying, this is what I'm assuming. They're quiet because what they will spring on us, we are not going to like. But they would have been given a mandate and they will implement it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm fully understand. I'm following you. But I am saying, because of the outcry, the Prime Minister couldn't just go and sign on and appease Premier Mark Brantley. So he came up with this quasi-committee. That is what I'm saying. At least for him to try to even put or think about a quasi-committee, someone had to be listening because of the outcry.
Listening to what, Africa? I'm asking you, listening to what? Again, let me be the devil's advocate. I am the Prime Minister. I hear Mark Brantley. I know I very well want to follow what Mark Brantley is implementing, but I know if I do it right now, it's going to backfire. So all I do is stall. That's what I'm doing. I say, well, we put a committee. This has been done before. When people asked for their increases, civil servants wanted increase. What did the regime do? The regime say, okay, well, I'm going to put this to a board, to some foreign entity, and they drag it off. This is what these people do. I'm saying we need to start be thinking like bright people. We stop thinking like we're little adolescents. Politicians do things. I do not trust this stall. I believe, this is my belief, I believe that the Prime Minister, when I think back on when the Attorney General came here and the questions he was asking and his statements, I believe that I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, I believe the present regime wants to go the way of the SSZ. And all of this is just a stall. And if they have an election and the election benefits them, I believe that we'll see the SSZ implemented. Because if you look factually, where these people feel this is the only way they can get income. But they don't seem to understand that income will come to our detriment long term. So I'm not going to be like you and jump any gun. I don't think that way.
Okay, well, we will see.
We will
about
see.
This snap election, and we will see. We just keep monitoring, and I will continue as per usual.
These people.
Hold a second. Hello, caller.
Good morning, Queen. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Now, Queen, stop thinking like me.
You understand?
No, everything you just said, I agree with you 100%. You see a lot of these boards, when anything comes up and they claim they put up these boards, all these are stall tactics.
That's
because
all,
you realize nothing never manifests out of these boards.
I mean, how much times are we going to be fooled with the same thing?
Exactly. Nothing but stall tactics. And like you just said, election call and they get back in, they're going to do exactly what Mark wants to do in Nevis, in St. Kitts.
Yeah, that's my feeling.
That's what they're going to do. They just keep fooling the people, and it's so sad that the people keep falling for the foolish stuff. I mean, get real. How much time can you lie to me and I keep falling for your lie?
Mm-hmm.
How much time I'm going to let you deceive me?
And
all people say, show me your company and I show you who you be.
And you know what made me come to that conclusion? When I see how they deal with those locals on the beach.
But exactly.
When I see
to act so fast.
You understand?
They're so willing to act so fast to as the Jamaica would say, kitty cat the local off the beach.
Yeah.
What do you think if they get back in power with this SSD? What do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna build us. They're gonna let Nevis gonna do what they want to do over there, and they're gonna find a spot in St. Kitts for the same thing. It's nothing new.
Nothing new.
It's time people wise up. I mean, this morning I listened to the farmers, them crying. Imagine the farmers competing with government. Shouldn't the government and the farmers be working together to feed the country?
Yeah.
Instead of you competing with them. So you got the farmers got carrots and the carrots can't get sold. The carrots got to spoil. Imagine all these foolish things. Don't they realize what is happening in the world? There's coming a time, you see them ship what we depend on so much. They're going to stop come. It's time for the government, the people look out to maintain themselves and stop the foolishness. Look, all they do is keep lying to the people. From the other day when I see them all of a sudden, the school ground going to break, this going to break. I said to myself, election is around the corner. Election is going to be called before the end of this year. Anytime you see them start to do that, by now you're supposed to be able to read these people like a book cover.
Like a book cover.
Don't even open the book, just the cover. Queen, I'll continue to listen.
Okay. Africa, your final words.
Yes, the ad hoc committee is there, and we want to see them get busy. That's my thought. We want to see them look into other areas. They are there. Let's get to work. Thanks for listening, Quinn.
Okay. We're just about out of time. So, as always, it has been a pleasure being here. But this is what I'm pushing, and this comes back to the way I started in terms of self-love. When we love ourselves, we don't just let people dictate and give us what they want. We ask questions because we love ourselves enough to be concerned about not only what happens to us, but to our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors. Let me see if I can entertain a final call. Hello, caller. Okay, lost that. If you're going to interact, you're going to have to do that quickly because I'm practically out of time. But I will indulge you if you... Hello, caller.
Hello.
Hello.
You're on the air still?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Let me say this quickly. Now, it is not true that the Bible said that the Egyptians built the pyramids. That's not true. In Exodus chapter 1, verse 11, it says
no one said the Bible. The Bible part that I interjected was the part where the Jews were going through all these travail in Egypt and that kind of stuff. That was my interjection.
Yeah, but a caller said, and the clip you played by Dr. Ben, he said that he claimed that he said that the Bible said that the Jews built the pyramid.
I don't.
That's not true.
I would have to listen to it again. I know I didn't hear him say that the Bible said.
Yes. He said it. Okay, listen to it again. But what I'm saying is that the Bible never claimed that the Jews built the pyramid. The Bible said in Exodus 1 verse 11 that the Hebrews, they built these two cities, the Pithom and the Ramesses, from mud bricks made with straws and that sort of stuff, not from stone. The pyramids were built with stones. So the Jews never built the pyramids. And yes, archaeological evidence have shown that in the Goshen area, which was called Avaris at the time, that there was a large Semitic population there from Canaan. And when you go to the Sea of Aqaba, divers have dived down there. You see chariot wheels and I think horse remains and all that sort of stuff. So there is good indication. Yes, there was a Semitic, which I believe, as the Bible says, the Hebrews were in Goshen, and the Red Sea incident as well. I think the evidence suggests that definitely is the case. There's a lot more. There's a documentary called Patterns of Evidence. The first one in the series, called The Exodus, goes through a lot of those evidences. And I think the second one as well. Take care, Quint. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, caller. Be as quick as possible, please.
Yes. Good morning, Brother Quint.
Yeah.
I missed you. I missed you from Island Peace, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Brother Quint, too much activities has been entertained in the Federation.
Remember, I asked you to be brief because we're out of time really. So be as quick as possible.
All right. Let me just ask one question. When will be your next engagement?
I don't know. There's another Wednesday in the month, and I think Agard will be there. And when Agard comes, he determines the topic. So I don't know.
All right.
Just
we'll look out for Wednesday.
Just listen.
I will leave it right here. I have lots to say, but it's not going to be enough. So I will respect. I will take it up another time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for your understanding there. The time is 3 minutes moving away from the 12 o'clock hour. And let me see if I can now go into the Winn FM headline news.
You found the sound. 98.9 Winn FM.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7